to Age of Geek Podcast. I am Robert. This is Steph. This is Marley.
Hi.
Hello.
And tonight, whenever you're listening to or watching this, we're going to be talking about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Woot woot.
Woot,
Too many
woot,
Spider-Man,
indeed.
not enough time.
I wore my
Right.
Spider-Man shirt, you guys.
I wear a red
Hey.
hoodie to go with Miles' comic look. Or
I
one of
wore
his
the
comic
same
books,
clothes I wore to work today.
which
Good job,
he also
Steph.
wore to the movie today.
Correct. Yes.
So
there
everybody's
we go.
tied in.
Full circle.
There we go.
It works.
Yes, and so now we have the latest chapter of Miles's introduction to the multiverse by way of the Spider-Verse in this case, and his merry misadventures therein. And I guess we're just going to dive on in and talk about what happened. Oh, by the way, if you have not seen the movie, you may want to stop
Spoilers.
this now, come back, after you've seen it, because this will be spoiler laden. So
Yes.
there's your warning.
I like that. Spoiler laden.
Well, let's get this off firsthand. This was a horrible movie, right? We all agree. Bad.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed.
Predictable. The art was not great. The music was lame.
Yeah,
Uncle
given what they
Ben
did with the
died
first
a
one, especially with
lot.
some of the animation and the camera angles they used in the first one, I was very disappointed. I thought they
Yeah,
could have done
just-
so much more with this.
Wah, wah, wah. Spend your money instead on going to see The Flash.
Oh, okay.
Shots fired.
Wow,
Shots
before we
fired.
lose any listeners, don't leave. We were just playing a joke.
Funny haha, yes.
Oh.
This
But
was
in
a
all-
fantastic movie.
Yes,
It
in
was-
all seriousness, it was really, really good. And our next episode, we'll be talking about the Flash. So just you wait.
Please get real. I had high expectations going into this movie, and they were met, if not surpassed, with what was given to us.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And we've been waiting a long time. Into the Spider-Verse came out in 2018.
Okay, so 5 years.
And they worked on it pretty much ever since that film released. They've been working on the sequel. And it sounds like they had to have been working on both at the same time, meaning when I say both, I mean this second movie and then the third one, because it's already has a release date of next year.
Oh, by
Oh,
the way,
wow.
here's your first spoiler. It's a two-parter.
Oh,
It's gonna be a trilogy, y'all.
yes, Beyond the Spider-Verse is the next one, and it'll come out in March, if you didn't already know that. And I am just like super, super excited because we don't have to wait 5 years.
And they left us on a huge cliffhanger.
Are you what? A cliffhanger? No.
They did. I'm gonna jump to the end where they lay the cliffhanger. We are on the cliff, holding on by our two fingers, and if anything happens, a rock's gonna fall on our arm, and we'll have to cut it off. Like
If the
100
rock falls in our arm,
hours.
wouldn't the reflex be to just let go at that point?
No, Robert.
No? Okay.
Come on. You're not. You must not be very outdoorsy, are you?
Oh,
Have you
gosh.
met me?
Or we'll just use our web shooters.
Oh, wait, we use our
and
other hand.
and
Got
swing
it.
around. No,
There
we'll,
you go.
we'll shoot out our webs and start swinging around, and we'll save ourselves. It'll be fine because we're
Oh
all
my-
Spider-Man.
But wait a minute. Wouldn't we just like stick to the cliffside rather than falling off?
Semantics.
Okay, this is a fraught analogy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Wow, Steph, you
I
took us
know.
down this cliff and pushed us off the edge, and we're hanging
And
on
threw
for
rocks
dear
at us.
life.
Shit, I'm so sorry.
Oh goodness. But yes, I want to start off by saying like how awesome it was to see the different styles between the different Spider-Verses. So like every time they switched to because immediately
We start off with Gwen.
we start off with Gwen, and so we see more of her world, and it's obviously a very different style.
Like
It's more
watercolor
and like muted and like really pretty pastels, and then it's a lot like softer lines.
Mhm.
And even just like when we go into Moonbatten, is that how you say it?
I believe so.
Moonbatten with
Paviter
can't-
Pecor.
yeah.
The
I'm like, I can't say his name right. I'm sorry, Paviter. And even like that whole thing, like it was a completely different like style. And Miles's universe is a little more sharper lines, but yeah, no, it was just really, really cool to see all these different styles and how they portrayed them.
I don't think I knew that Mumbattan was a combination
Manhattan.
of Mumbai and Manhattan.
Yep.
Today she learned, folks.
Fantastic.
Kind of like San Francisco in Big Hero 6.
Yes. I was going to ask, and I knew I was talking to you later tonight about this, Robert, is some of the styles of art in the movie kind of go with the styles of art in the comics?
Yes. For Miles, no, the style that they used for Into the Spider-Verse kind of continued over. But that his comic style is not quite the same that you see in the movies.
Okay.
But some of the styles from Robbie Rodriguez's work in some of the Spider-Gwen series is like that, and I cannot remember what Peter's Spider Sona name is. I don't think it's Spider. I'm not sure if it's Spider-Man, but the Mumbattan scenes looked very similar to what I remember seeing in one of the Across the Spider-Verse crossovers in the comics. So yes, they did. Spider-Punk, Hobie Brown, his style was a little different than I'm used to seeing, but it also worked incredibly well for him. For being the punk, being the outsider, and kind of literally coloring outside the lines. I think that his graphic style, especially juxtaposed upon the rest of the other characters, worked very well for him. I would love to. I'm hoping that we get to see um, his universe because it's a little different.
Spider-Punk was awesome, and I loved how Miles was like, how do you get cooler when you take the mask off? Oh, it was so fun.
He was a fun character. I really like when they first mentioned Hobie, he didn't really seem like, I don't know, he seemed just kind of like one of those Spider-Man versions of Spider-Man that just was kind of, I don't know, I don't know how to like describe it, but he just kind of sounded like
Meh.
like a dead, like, yeah, kind of like a deadbeat almost. Not deadbeat, that's not the right word. Gosh, I am not good with words tonight, but basically like he's like stuck up, maybe, is kind of more what I'm thinking. Not deadbeat, that's like way off, but like he just seemed kind of like, I mean, because Gwen even made like a quick comment about how in between, since she left home, how she crashed on his couch a couple of times, kind of thing. And and so you're just kind of like, who's this guy? Like, what? I don't know. He just seemed kind of like stuck up, but also maybe a little bit of like a sleazeball. And so you're kind of like, what is going on here? Like, I don't know if I like this.
Oh,
and like, is there something there that we don't know about? Like, I hope that they don't. I guess my initial thing was I was worried that they were going to make some sort of romantic thing between Hobie and Gwen. But then when you actually meet Hobie, you find that it's like completely, like, I was completely wrong.
I don't know. I think there might have been some sort of like, not a love connection, but a like connection. I mean, Gwen.
Well, he respected her.
Gwen doesn't think she's ever going to see Miles again, so is she just supposed to nun it up and
well, I don't
close off her heart to everybody?
Hold on a second. Hold on. I gotta savor that one. Nun it up.
I don't think it was necessarily that she was like, okay, I'm never going to see Miles again. I have to move on, because it was clear that she emotionally was not moved on.
Well, yeah.
But I think she was trying to make herself move on. I think it was one of those, I can't see him, and having found the other secret society of spider people, and they're like, you can't see Miles, and I think she was trying to reconcile that and kind of live with that concept. So it may have been that she's just like, well, I can't see Miles. Hobie's not so bad. So I don't know that they weren't trying to set up some kind of a potential or even failed relationship there.
Yeah. Who of us hasn't hooked up with a hottie when we weren't quite over our last relationship? Because I've been there.
Rebound.
But no, the British punk scene is cool. So I
Mhm.
really, yeah, I thought that was a fun add to their little
Well,
spider gang.
and he's voiced by Daniel
Say it.
Kahlua. Kahlua.
It's
Kalua.
not as hard
Kaluuya.
as it looks.
I was gonna say Kaluuya, but it's
Huh.
Kalua. But yeah, if people don't recognize that name, he was in
Wakabi.
Get out.
yes, and he was in Get Out, which I think that's where I saw him first, or maybe he was more recognizable to me in that movie, and then I saw him in Black Panther. Either way, I don't remember which came first,
I
but
think Black Panther came out first.
did it?
I don't. I could be wrong, but I think Black Panther came out before Get Out.
Well, either way, those are like the only two things I know him from. And now this. But that was cool to find out that
Oh,
he was the
I
voice.
stand corrected.
Get
Get
out.
Out came out in 2017.
Good job,
Oh.
Mr. Peel. Is it Peel who did
Yep,
the
Yeah,
Jordan
Peele
Peele?
did that one.
he was also
But
in Nope. Have you seen Nope yet?
Haven't seen
no.
Nope yet. Was
Nope.
it as good as Get Out?
In a different way.
Okay.
I heard
I
it was
do-
trippy.
Enjoy psychological thrillers, so I might have to
Yeah,
give
I
a
hear
shot.
it was pretty trippy. But no, anyways, Daniel Kaluuya, yeah, like it was cool to find out that he was the voice of Hobie. Because I always like to put like voice actors like faces and and then compare to their voices and their character in the animated versions. I always like to be able to like see those two in my mind. But I could see it. I could definitely see it. I thought he did a really good job. And I liked that character again, like as you he was kind of like this funny,
F
like
the establishment.
yeah, and he was
I
Yes.
kind of
loved
like
him
this
talking
like
to the baby.
yeah, he was like this voice in the background almost kind of thing. Like things would be happening and then he'd just be making comments off to the side and you're just like I heard that.
But he's also kind of like the snarky voice that you want to make, the comments that you want to make that you
Yeah.
don't feel you can make. He's just like, I'm going to say it, and
Well,
nobody's going to stop me.
Yeah.
especially when you have Miguel O'Hara,
Mhm.
Oscar Isaacs, who is amazing.
Oh yes. Oh,
Being like
yes.
creepy, like overpower Spider-Man. And even Peter Parker is like, dude, we're supposed to be funny. That's part of our shtick.
Mhm.
And
Apparently, nobody told that to Issa Rae for her Jessica Drew, and I have to admit, I was curious. I was oddly curious when they introduced her in the trailer, and I found out that she was Jessica Drew. I'm like, that's a change that I did not see coming, because I've been a Jessica Drew fan in comics and even in cartoons because she had her own cartoon back in the late 70s, for one season. And so seeing a Jessica Drew that is not even remotely similar to the Jessica Drew that I was used to, except for being pregnant, I was like, okay, I'm in. You got me. And I loved her character.
I have to say, during that fight scene with Vulture, not DiCaprio, Da Vinci style Vulture.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was totally not Michael Keaton. I was disappointed.
No.
But when Jess Drew showed up, it kind of made me almost start tearing up a little bit to see this badass woman be in it, but also this pregnant woman. And you don't see pregnancy ever portrayed in a way that's like kind of strong and powerful very often.
I
And
would
so
actually
that
say,
really got to me.
I would say that you should check out the Dennis Hopeless Spider-Woman, I'm sorry, from 2019, I believe, where like Jessica shows up in the first issue and she's pregnant, and everybody's like, because they don't explain it right off the bat, and they don't actually explain it until I think towards the end of the series how she came to be pregnant. But
Oh,
she has a little boy who has
spider
spider powers
powers,
like mom.
cute.
And kind of like Mayday was in this, that's Jerry.
Yeah.
Jerry.
I think because usually with pregnancy, it's like kind of you can't ride horses, you can't ride bikes. So to see her on like a motorcycle, it's more
Fighting
of
crime.
a problem than it is like a strength. And she was just badass, didn't let it stop her. So I I loved that.
Well, considering that,
Well, and even with like, yeah, like with female superheroes, like you never see that.
yeah, I think that they pretty much sidelined Sue Richards in the Fantastic Four the first time she was pregnant with Franklin. With Valeria, I think that she did a little bit more, but they eventually, had her benched. So you don't often see that. I think the only other character I can think of off the top of my head who was in combat while pregnant was Saturn Girl from the Legion of Superheroes in the mid '90s.
You are a wealth of knowledge. A well of knowledge. A wealth of
Virtual
knowledge.
cesspool of trivial knowledge, something.
I mean, that's not what I would say.
I don't know about that, but close.
It's so cool to see all the different versions of Spider-Man in this. That's probably one of the most fun parts. We saw Red Dead Redemption Spider-Man.
Web slinger.
There we go.
Web slinger.
Spider Cat.
Hmm.
Oh, I was so happy.
T-Rex
to see
Spider-Man.
Spider-Cat.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
You see Spider Pig at the end, but I don't think
Yes.
John Mulaney's voice was in this at all.
Well, and neither was Nick Cage as Spider Noir.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but you did see Penny, right?
Mhm.
Penny, yeah. We saw her and she had a line in it. But we got to know some new ones. Like there was
Oh, the glitch girl, not the glitch girl.
Yeah,
The
no, I
Avatar
know.
girl.
Spider-Byte.
Yeah.
She was
Spider-Byte.
adorable.
Yes. I was like, I know you guys know who I'm talking about.
It's like I don't even have to be there to be Spider-Person. I can just be virtual.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Oh, and Scarlet Spider
Mhm.
was played by Andy Samberg.
Hmm.
That was fun. Let's see. I'm looking on Wikipedia. There's like a whole bunch of them. Yeah, there was Web Slinger and his horse Widow. We talked about that. Oh, there was Lego Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. So speaking of that,
That was fun.
Yeah.
the Lego Spider-Man scene. I don't know if anybody has seen this. Anybody outside of the podcast has seen this, but a 14-year-old kid named Preston reanimated the Across the Spider-Verse trailer in Lego. He impressed the producers so much they had him animate the Lego Spider-Man scenes in this.
That's amazing.
So this
That's
kid at 14 has a major motion picture credit to his, under his belt already.
Well, that's just one of the cool things about all the different art that goes into it, and how it all works together. Where it could be like a big old mess
Yeah.
and confusing, instead it creates like art, like moving art.
One of my favorite Spider-Mans that they included in this, well, and there's several references that I was really excited for, but one of them that I was really excited for, and it was so quick that I almost missed it, but I heard the voice, and I recognized the voice of Yuri Lowenthal, who voices Spider-Man in Marvel's Spider-Man, which is like the video game series by Insomniac. But yeah, he was like in there so quick when they were talking about like they were like walking as Miles, they were like walking him through in the little Spider-Man whole area, and they're walking past all the villains that were like kept in the containers. And there was like a couple of them that were like kind of like I don't know, 16-bit, 30-bit, whatever it is.
32. Oh yeah.
Little ones, and they talked about like video game ones, and then you hear somebody like, hey, you're talking about me, or whatever he says, and that was Yuri Lowenthal. And I was like, did they just do yes they included him. And like they even there was also a quick reference too that I had noticed early on in the movie. I don't know if you guys caught it. Early on in the game, Miles's roommate is sitting in the bottom bunk and he's playing a video game. He's playing the PS4 Spider-Man
I thought
game.
he was.
I recognized like the HUD of it. Like I saw like the buttons off to the side, and I'm like, I know exactly what game that is.
Yeah.
But yes, I loved those call outs.
So there's
that was
another
cool.
kind of obscure one from the, I think, early 80s. One of the villains that they had in there looked like he was like a 4-bit villain. Looked like he had horns and a big V. That was Video Man, who was in, I believe, 2 episodes of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Oh, nice.
And he wound up being, I think that by the time the series ended, he was no longer a bad guy and was actually being trained by the X-Men in one of the rare cameos of the X-Men in animation prior to them having anything remotely resembling an animated series.
That's awesome. I got really excited when Donald Glover showed up in full like real life person.
Prowler.
Hmm.
And he
Yeah.
was dressed as a prowler, which that just like I feel like that was our MCU like reference. I wonder why they
There were
didn't
two.
include Tom Holland.
There were two because you not only got that reference, but you got Miguel referencing that twerp in Universe 199999 when he was
Yes.
storming off. So they did have a couple of the references, but you also saw Andrew
Yes, which
Garfield
yeah.
Yes, you do see Andrew
and you
Garfield,
saw Tobey
Tobey
Maguire.
Maguire.
Well, yeah, but I
And I
I
don't think they
know
can
I
have
know
him.
they're technically now in the MCU because they showed up in Spider-Man No Way Home, but I still kind of when I say like MCU, I'm meaning like
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland. But yes, no, I loved the Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire references. That was really cool. Again, to see like those mixed mediums with the like the 2D animation and then you see like that live action people in like the same scene, and so that was really cool.
Somebody made a
I
call
wasn't
out,
expecting that.
and somebody made a call out. This is the second time they've neglected to have the live action TV series Spider-Man on there, Nicholas Hammond, which was like, that was a bit of a miss again, but that would have been kind of neat to have him in there in some
Mm.
capacity.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with that one.
It was, I want to say 78, possibly. I think it made maybe 2 seasons on CBS, but
Mm.
it was not the best show, but it was what we had way back in the day before all of this MCU 27,000 movies about one character.
Oh my gosh. But okay, so back to Donald Glover as the Prowler. So what do you guys think that might mean for the actual MCU? Do you think we're going to actually see him as Prowler in like a future
No, I think it
MCU
was
movie?
a throwback to when they did the first Tom Holland and everyone
Homecoming.
wanted him to play Miles.
Hmm.
And
Well,
instead he
he's
plays
His uncle.
the uncle.
Aaron Davis.
Yeah. And I think it's just kind of a nod to that because I still think that there's a lot of people who would love to see Donald Glover as Miles in a live action.
Well,
Um,
he wouldn't be Miles though. He'd be
He could be an older Miles.
he could be an older
well,
Miles.
well, yeah, but in the MCU, he's the uncle, Aaron Davis. So he
Yeah,
wouldn't,
He could
yeah.
be a variant. That's what I was looking for.
there
He
you
could be a
go.
variant. There you go.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
think we'll see Donald Glover in a Marvel movie, to be honest.
Ah,
I
I
think this will
mean,
be the closest we get.
well,
But I
And we're
because
do
glad to
he,
have
love
him.
Childish Gambino. and
well, and like I had to go after this movie. I was talking to Jason about how like in Homecoming, I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like he talks about his nephew, and there's like a deleted scene where he calls his nephew and refers to him as Miles,
Miles.
and like all this stuff. And so I had to go and find the YouTube clip and like show him, and he's like, oh yeah, that's right, because that was a little while ago, but like that there was a legit reference to
So
that in Spider-Man Homecoming.
thank you for the reminder of this. In the No Way Home, the last Tom Holland movie. So when he's getting his apartment, there's a couple arguing in the background or yelling in the background as he's getting in the door. Apparently, in the Brazilian version of this with subtitles, it says Rio and Jeff, and they're like, Miles, clean your room.
Oh.
So
What?
there may be an MCU Miles at some point.
I
Well,
would
it
love
might be
that.
sooner rather than later because Tom Holland, not only are we on a writer's strike, Tom Holland's taking a year off of acting. So we're
Oh,
not
is
going
he
to get this
really?
movie for 2, 3, 4 years after
But you also have to
production,
consider
editing, and
But you
whatnot.
have to consider that we're also not we may not see Tom Holland in a Marvel movie again. We'll see him in a Spider-Man movie if Sony decides to continue in that direction, but it will not necessarily be an MCU movie.
Hmm.
Although it'll be MCU adjacent since they've had the other Spiders and Venom show up in the scenes from No Way Home.
It'll still be a while though, because he is
Yes.
taking the year off after
Well,
filming that movie, The Crowded Room.
oh yeah, that's right. Well, and speaking of Venom, did you guys catch that reference in Across the Spider-Verse?
No.
Perhaps not.
Okay. So in earlier when it's Spot,
Mhm.
the creepy villain guy, that we haven't talked about at all. We need to talk about him. He was hilarious, but also there's that point where he discovers like he's like stuck in his own void and he starts to realize that he can go and pop into other universes, and he pops into a universe and his head is sticking out, and there's that woman at that kind of convenience store,
Yes.
and she's
yes.
like, you're not the weirdest thing I've ever seen. She's the one from Chinatown in
Yes. In
what
the
is
Venom
it,
movies.
San Francisco? Is that
Yes.
where?
Yes.
Yeah, San Francisco.
I didn't catch that reference, but I love that scene.
I did catch
Yep.
the reference, and I half
Yep.
expected Eddie to just walk through the scene at that point.
Right? Where was Tom Hardy? But yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool that they were able to give at least a little shout out to to that Venom.
Okay, but Spot, he was fun and quirky.
Mhm.
He's Jason Schwartzman, so you know he's going to be an odd duck. That's just his thing.
No, you're right.
And then when he goes to the collider, is that what it
Mhm.
is? In Moonbatten, he becomes like creepy AF.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes.
I was with my kids and I'm like, Aria, is that creepy? And she said no, she was fine. But
Oh.
I was like, it's kind of
I'm
creepy.
not surprised by that.
No, Aria is odd as well. She's the Jason,
But no,
Schwartzman
like
of my family.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, Spot was a lot of fun, I think, like in the beginning when he was trying to steal from that ATM machine. As he was saying that, I was like, is anybody gonna correct him? And sure enough, Miles did, and I laughed so
But I love the
hard.
fact that Miles is just sitting there eating a hot dog, just like, that's what are you doing? And he's
Mhm.
just like, not so much stealing from the store, but just like having his own way. Like, I'm at home here.
Yeah.
No big deal.
We're gonna handle this situation.
And I
Yes.
enjoyed the "you made me, I made you" kind of back and forth between Miles and Spot. It's like,
Mhm.
and there's like Miles is like, you're not even, you're a Tuesday. You just something on
villain
my
of the
list.
week. That came back to bite him in the butt.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
But what a creepy villain. I've said he's creepy at least 17 times. But like what a good villain to have. Like he seems almost unstoppable, especially at this point where he's like claimed his power. So not only in the next one he'll have to stop Spot, as well as Prowler, his uncle, and Prowler himself.
No, I was gonna say him. Yeah, it's the other spoiler. Yeah, the Prowler in that other universe is Miles.
Because he should have been Spider-Man, but the spider never bit him.
Mhm.
So yeah, I thought that was a really interesting twist. I mean, they obviously went over it, or like, halfway through the movie or early on, where they talked about how the spider that bit Miles didn't belong. Like
To
he
Miles.
also like jumped universes. How was it that the spider got to his universe again? Did they say?
Didn't Spot?
No.
Was it Spot, or how did it?
Yeah, I think it was. He was like playing with interdimensional travel and brought that
that's
spider
right.
into it. And because he's like, I made you. That spider wouldn't have
Mm.
been here if it weren't for me.
That's right. He's the one that's monologuing at that point, telling Miles / us,
Not
the
me
audience.
monologuing.
Thank you, Syndrome.
And like and like, yeah, so I thought that was a really interesting bit where they they referenced that, and then they kind of just like moved on from it until towards the end when Miles is trying to get out of, I don't remember what that world is called, where all the Spider-Men are, the Spider-Man
Spider Lobby.
Nueva York.
HQ,
Yeah.
I think is what they nicknamed it, but
Nueva
it was
York.
like, yeah.
Nueva York.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so they had like that machine that was like the go home machine or whatever. They like sent you back to where like it like matched with your DNA, and it sent you back to whichever universe you belong to. And
How
I
long did
didn't
it take you to catch that?
Oh, way too long. Way too long. What about you guys?
I was like, wait a minute, but they've talked about this, and I wasn't sure. And when he gets home and he starts talking to his mom, I'm like, oh, I know what just happened.
Hmm.
When I like audibly gasped when he like realized he wasn't in the right universe. I'm like,
Yep.
no.
That's about where I realized it too. Was at the
I
same
loved
time. I was
how
like,
Rio called it a comics con.
"What?"
You guys, I found myself having a realization in this movie. I relate more to the parents than I do to the protagonist.
Welcome
I
to my world.
there was like one point where Miles was Spider-Man and he was talking to Jeff and he was like, and Jeff says something like, you think you're doing such a good job at being a parent, and then they go and grow up. And it's just like, oh damn.
Yeah, I was right there with you. I'm just like, oh, and I looked over at my girls. They're just watching the movie. I'm just like, damn it, Jeff.
Yeah. Also, Rio and Jeff are cool parents. I want to
I
be like
love them. They're
Oh,
cute.
they're also they're cute parents, but I also like the way that they were. Rio's kind of like, oh, so who's this when Gwen shows up?
Yeah.
And Miles is like, mom, 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 oh, and just she's just like, oh, so who's this? And oh,
Don't
and she
take
called
him from
she
me.
called me by my first name. Okay,
Yeah. Oh.
and I will say that is a thing. Um, yeah, especially growing up, I would have never referred to somebody by their first name ever. So it was just like, I understood that reference.
So speaking of names, I was confused by something, and maybe Robert, you might be able to have the answer to
Wow,
this.
no
But
pressure
like,
here.
I thought his dad, Jeff, was
Jeff,
Jefferson Davis,
yes,
not Jeff
not Jefferson
Morales.
Morales. Yes, I don't know if that was some kind of a
Yeah.
slip, but yes. But one of the other things is, and I need to check. I haven't looked to see if they've changed this in the comics. One of the reasons that has been such a controversy is you named Spider-Man's father after the president of the Confederacy.
Yeah.
So
I
then,
can see
so
why that could be.
I'm not
Jefferson
saying.
Davis.
No, actually, I am saying. Who does that? Looking at you,
Hmm.
Bendis. Um,
I did not
but
realize that
yes, so
connection.
there's been some questions about that, and it's a long running or a long standing. I don't want to call it a trope. I will call it a problem within comics of giving black characters names that somebody thinks sounds okay without
Knowing the
asking
history.
without without asking. Hey, is this culturally insensitive?
Hmm.
Well, also a lot of Latinx cultures, they hyphenate with the mother's
Hmm.
maiden name. So the maiden name and the surname are there together. So I don't know if maybe that played into it as well.
And it may have, but it was just
Yeah,
Morales on his badge, not Morales Davis or Davis Morales.
yeah, that
Either
is
way,
Yeah.
either way, I was happy to see that Jeff made captain finally because
yeah.
he's been
Mhm.
busting his chops
Well, but we
for all
know
this
what that
time.
means for him.
Yes,
Do
he's going to
we
Yeah.
eventually make commander.
do we think that they're going to kill
Eventually.
off Jeff in the next one?
I don't know.
I think Miles is gonna find a way to like change his
He's going to tell his own story, like he said in there. It's like everybody's
yeah.
telling me how I should be Spider-Man, but this is my story, not theirs. And I'm like,
Right.
that is going to pay off later. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, unless they are just giving lip service, that has to pay off in the next movie.
Well, because
So
what did they call it? Like
A,
their
an
a
pivotal
event,
a
moment?
canon event.
canon
Canon
event.
event. Thank you.
Well, and
Like he could
so
change it.
Peter stops the canon event in Mumbattan,
Hmm.
and when
No, Miles stops it.
yeah, Miles,
Well,
sorry, I
yeah,
said Peter.
Miles. Yeah.
And when what's his face, Paviter
Hmm.
grabs the bus, I really
Hmm.
thought they were gonna do like a Gwen Stacy thing where he grabs it, but it's too late and crack
Oh my god.
goes her neck. But I'm glad they didn't. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's a
Change
really
the canon event, maybe.
dark
Hmm.
point or dark
Yeah.
part of
I know. I was worried about that
and
too.
then Gwen Stacy in her universe stops a canon event as well when her father does it, like quits as a police officer.
But
That's
that
And
wasn't
so
her so much. I mean, she was the catalyst, but
Yeah, she's the catalyst of it, but she knew that her dad would die if he continued to be a cop and go on to captain. So she kind of stopped that as well. So obviously it can happen.
Well, but she already had her canon event
with
because her
Peter.
Peter died.
But they did
Yeah,
talk about
her
in the
canon
movie
event was
how
that.
she knows that her dad is going to die if she continues on. Because
I
he's
don't know.
kind of
Yeah.
because
He's the policeman who's close to Spider Woman.
and Miles is like
Yeah.
you are still gonna you're okay with this, you're gonna still let it happen, and she just kind of looks away or like demurs.
So let's take that for a second
That's
because
right.
you've got everybody keeping this big secret from Miles
Mhm.
of canon events or fixed points in time or whatever you care to call it for your particular medium. And that was one of the reasons that I think that they were keeping Gwen from going back to visit him was to prevent her from saying anything to Miles about his canon event. Um, and the guilty look that Gwen has more than once when the idea of canon events, like when she's trying to stop Miles, she could have stopped him if she had really tried, but I don't think that she wanted to when he was saving the bus and Paviter's girlfriend, whose name eludes me at the moment. But oh, sorry,
I
the
don't know.
captain. I'm sorry, the captain
The
of the
captain and little
Blue.
child.
And Gwen, we've seen all the stuff she can do, and like especially fighting the Vulture at the beginning of the movie, and how she was in the last movie. Gwen could have easily stopped him
Yeah.
from saving that, but you can see that Gwen was also very torn because while she knows that this event has to happen, she doesn't want to hurt Miles at the same time, and she's just like ah. And then you have Miguel and Jessica coming down on her for letting him do it, and she
Mhm.
just shrinks even further, and you feel bad for her because she's definitely between a rock and a hard place.
Well, yeah, because it just goes back to how much she cares about Miles. And you can tell that she doesn't like keeping everything secret from him. She wants him to be part of it, but she also understands that like because his event he's so different because he wasn't ever supposed to be
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. So she's also like has like this sense of duty with the Spider Club.
Yeah.
And she wants to make nice with them, or else they're going to boot her back home. And then she has to deal with her problems back home and all of that. So, yeah, she's definitely stuck.
Someone needs to make. I know there's a podcast kind of similar to this. They need to do Marvel Therapy Hour, where they have these characters come on because Gwen is obviously uh anxious, sad, having big feelings about her dad and about Peter that are unresolved in her from her universe. Miles is heartbroken because his friends all came in and they were all good and then they just leave and never come back. Doesn't know where they are, if he'll ever see them again. Quite clearly Miguel O'Hara has some issues he needs to work through. I mean, I hate to say it, but Peter Parker seems to be the most well
Adjusted of everybody.
adjusted of the group.
Are you talking about Peter B.
Peter
Parker?
B.
The
Yes.
one with the baby?
Yeah.
Yes.
I
Uh,
love him.
Played by
I
what's his
also,
face, who's adorable.
yeah, I also love his voice
Something.
actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, Miguel has issues. Yeah.
And he's a vampire? I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, what was that? I was
I
confused.
cannot speak to that. I have not read enough about Miguel because he was not one of my favorite Spider-Men. The 2099 line was just kind of like, that's nice. Just keep it over there for me. So I do not have a lot of knowledge in historical canon for Miguel.
I think he will be coming back in the next one, so maybe we'll learn a little bit more about him.
Hopefully so.
I
And the
think
thing
as
is,
an antagonist for sure.
excuse me, I don't think that he was ever really an antagonist in his series, but I think that giving him whatever trauma we're going to find out about, whatever additional trauma other than losing his family, and then
And
trying to
then,
make it work by
yeah,
taking over somebody else's life.
yeah,
Um,
that was sad in its own
Maybe
way.
he's more anti-hero
um,
category.
Probably. One of the things, speaking of another Spider-Man, Spider person, going back
Spider
to Ben
them.
Riley, going back, no, well, I'll get to Spider-Man in a minute, but going back to Ben Reilly as a Scarlet Spider, them not only animating him in a comic style, but also having him have the monologues, like the caption monologues that would be in a comic, as he's going, "Well, I've got to do this," and you're just like, "Is he? He's monologuing. He's internally monologuing." Okay, got it.
Yes, I love that that was Andy Samberg.
I
Like
love
I immediately recognized his voice.
I love it. I love their little pop-ups, like comic pop-ups. Like when they did the Hammer Space one to explain
Hmm.
what Hammer Space was. It's just fun. I didn't know what
Well,
Hammer Space was.
well, and even like with like the Moombot and stuff too. Like they had like the captions and different pop up quotes in Hindi.
Hmm.
And so I thought that was pretty cool too. Like they stuck with the universe, like they kept it consistent throughout. So I thought that was pretty cool too.
This movie did make me wish I knew how to speak Spanish. So I knew what Ria was saying.
Oh
One
yeah.
criticism that our friend Jake brought up, who has kids who are deaf and hard of hearing, is the sound editing, how sometimes the background noise was just as loud as the dialogue. And that is something that I noticed as well. Maybe I was a little
Oh,
bit more aware of it, but I do feel like they need to maybe
well they
adjust that
did.
or put captioning in movies better.
Well, they did. So there was so much backlash and comments about the sound being kind of quiet, especially like the dialogue, that they fixed it and are sending new versions to the theaters.
Oh,
So
good.
it's possible since, you know, I think it just happened. So it's possible yours, because did you notice that when you
Yeah, I
went and
did.
saw it? It was quiet.
Especially like the first couple fighting
Hmm.
sequences.
Yeah, so maybe that theater that you went to hadn't changed it yet, or they haven't received it yet, because it's pretty easy, like digital, because they just send the digital copies over, and it's pretty easy to move it over to the new thing the projectionists do. But yeah, that was definitely a thing that a lot of people are like, why is it so quiet?
And I noticed that when I watched it, because I saw it 2 weeks ago, I guess, and it was like, oh, and I just thought it was the positioning in the theater, but then I realized, no, those are putting out sound at a comparable quality to the
Hmm.
speakers in the front. It's just quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I had that same thought. I was like, I looked around and I'm like, wait, am I? No, I'm like in the middle. I should be pretty okay with the speakers. And I also just wish, yeah, more movies had
Captioning.
open captions.
I
Hmm.
would actually even go with like if they could do things like super titles like they do at the opera, because that way you don't have to bring your eyes so far away from the screen to read.
Right.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, no, it was definitely a concern that they listened to and that they
Good for them.
fixed. So I hopefully those of you who haven't seen it yet or just barely saw it, maybe you don't even know what we're talking about.
And if that's the case, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I honestly I don't really have any criticisms for this movie.
The only
Not that
criticism
I
I
can
have of the
really think
soft
of.
one is just that for a movie that moved as well as it did, telling the story it did, I was not expecting it to be a two-parter. So
Mhm.
I mean, it was both a and also gives me something to look forward to.
Right.
Yeah, for
So it's one of
sure.
those kind of mixed deals for me. I had to keep it from somebody who saw it a couple of days ago because they were like, "I'm going to go see this." I'm kind of like, must not say that it's a two-parter. And
Right.
then he comes back to me and says, "I didn't realize it was going to be in two parts." I'm like, would you rather I had spoiled that for you
Right.
or go into it and enjoy it and then go to be continued?
Yeah. That's how it was for me and my boss. She went and saw it with her kids over the weekend. And I was like, "Oh, so what'd you think of it?" And she's like, "Well, I thought it was great, except for how it ended." And I'm like, "Ah, yes, that part." I don't know. I think it's kind of fun how they did that. I mean, yes, initially I was like, "What?" But then I think it's kind of fun. Like I think it's clever and it keeps people interested and it keeps people like talking about it too. You know,
Well,
and
And I don't
I,
think that
gives people something to look forward to.
it's
I'd
kind of a
rather
throwback
they
also because movies early in movie theater history, You always got serials. So the hero, we get to a certain point, and the movie stops, and you've got to wait, come back next week to see, does he
Come
survive?
back
Does he make
next
it
week.
through? Yeah,
Hmm.
same bat channel, same spider channel, same spider time, I guess in this case. But I think that it was an interesting touch. The thing that I noticed was that at 2 hours and
16
16 minutes,
with
it's like
credits.
it didn't feel like a long movie. It moved well. It was a little slower at the beginning, which I think it needed to be to establish a couple of things.
Hmm.
Hmm.
But once it got going, um, it moved well, and it was the pacing. I think overall was good, and for the stories it was telling.
I'd much rather them do it this way and tell the story that they want to tell than cut it short, um, kind of half-ass it,
Yeah,
things in a bow. So I hope that they'll, yeah, get to tell the story, and they've
Hmm.
created a lot of build up. Gwen is creating her own little spider team, which should be great. Is
can we call
and
them a spider posse?
yeah, a little spider posse. And I think that that will be one of the big conflicts in the next one is Miguel versus Gwen.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
hopefully coming to like a conclusion where, hey, we can both do what we want, both be right, and we don't,
Agree to disagree.
yeah.
Well, and I thought it was a lot of fun with this movie because it basically it was like Gwen kind of taking over and being like, actually, it's my story for now. Like we got to see like a nice side of her and a bit more backstory and from her perspective. And then it just kind of makes me wonder which perspective we're going to see in the third one. Do you think we're
Oh
going to
yeah.
see Miguel's? Or do you think we're going to see maybe the Prowler Miles
They're
Morales?
gonna do it like they do in books where they do perspectives.
Mm.
Miles, Gwen, Miguel, Spider Pig.
I don't know who we'll get. Maybe we'll get Spider Cat's
Spider.
perspective.
Say what again,
Maybe we'll
Robert?
get Spider Cat's perspective this in the next one.
I would love that. Spider Cat was like my favorite thing in the Miles Morales video game. I always tried to go to the bodega because it was the bodega owner who has the Spider Cat, at least in the video game version. And I always would try to go visit him, and there was a button you could do to pet the cat.
Ah,
And then
And
later you get to go pick him up, and he comes with you on adventures, and he has his own little Spider-Man
nice.
outfit, and I love it.
No, I think that we've seen some of Miguel's story in the same way that we saw a little bit of Gwen's story in Into the Spider Verse. So I think they might elaborate more on what made Miguel the way he is, because there are still a number of questions about what makes Miguel tick the way he does.
right.
Mhm.
I think that we've gotten the tease, just enough of a taste to go. He's got things to work through, but what got him to that point
Yeah,
altogether? So perhaps it'll be Miguel's perspective. And I don't know who else we would necessarily get to see from the group that Gwen put together. Maybe we'll get to see Hobie's perspective, and that would be amazing
that would be
because
cool.
there's the Spider Punk in the most recent comics is not British. He's actually American in a
Oh.
world where Norman Osborn became president
Oh.
and the Avengers are not. So it's just a bunch of basically kids who had accidents that wound up with powers in a lot of cases.
Oh,
So
interesting.
it is if they take that tack with this, I'm totally in.
Hmm.
Not that I'm not going to be in anyway, but it's just another selling point for me.
Have they ever said what Earth we are in?
Define we in this
Us,
case.
the
Uh,
three of us.
we would be, technically 616 because they say that they've always claimed it as the world outside your door.
Oh.
So we would be 616.
Okay.
Which is where like the
All the
event
other
are
superheroes
like the
are.
Avengers that we know that's where they belong.
Yeah, like the MCU is 1999-99. Um, but we're typically considered 616, which is so
I
whenever
heard that
you
was the same thing, like the Earth 1999, 99, and
I've
616
heard
are kind of interchangeable.
to a degree. It's kind of DC has run into this problem as well as like where do the readers fit in? So they say there's like an Earth Prime, and then everything resonates off of that, all the variations. So like the Earth that readers are in DC has no heroes, but because of it, all the other hero universes exist. So
Hmm.
Hmm.
there you are. But anytime
I
you hear one of the 616 references in um, any Marvel show series, whatever, it is going back to the 616. I'm sorry, 616 is originally the comic universe. Sorry, I take that back. So we would probably wind up being something adjacent to 1999, 99.
was getting very sick of the multiverse idea with Doctor Strange and Ant-Man and Wasp, but I liked it in this movie. I usually am very
Not
harsh.
Loki.
Yeah. I'm usually really harsh on Marvel movies, but this was great.
Well, do you consider this a Marvel movie or do you consider it a Sony movie? And it's
Ugh.
one of those.
Semantics.
It's a Sony movie
Is
with partnered with Marvel.
is Spider a
Marvel helped
Sony
them.
hero or a Marvel hero? Could I go to a comic book store and get a Sony Spider-Man book?
Yes, actually, you can.
Well, damn it.
Well, movie wise, yeah, because Sony's like Spider-Man is mine, and we'll only give you a little bit.
Yeah, and it's
To Disney.
one of the problems with Marvel in the 80s and early 90s when they were hemorrhaging money and they spun off all of their licenses to anybody that would take them, which is why you can't get certain characters to have their own solo movies anymore. Like
Like the Hulk.
the Hulk is a universal character. Um, Namor in
And
Black Panther was in agreement with who got Namor. I think he's back with them because they were with he was with Fox. So when Fox folded back into Disney, I think that they wound up with him
Oh.
again.
yeah.
But I will find the Venn diagram of who got the licensing when, because it is ludicrous how many places they spun off into.
Mhm.
And Sony will never give this license up because it is now for them a cash cow.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, especially well, yeah, because they help with like the video game too, because Sony, PlayStation,
Yeah.
yep, they and they
So,
they announced,
I
that
scratch
there's
your butt, you scratch mine.
that
well,
second that
kind of.
second game is coming out this
With
year.
Spider-Man, it's a little different ish. So they had a successful series with Tobey Maguire for his 2.5 movies.
Successful ish.
Hold on, bear with me. Then you had the Andrew Maguire movie, and then the not as
Andrew
successful.
Garfield, you
Sorry,
mean?
Andrew Garfield. Thank you,
Andrew
Andrew
Maguire.
Garfield.
Toby
Sorry.
Garfield and
Generic
Andrew
Spider-Man.
Maguire.
Tom
We know what you
Maguire,
mean.
Andrew Holland. But Andrew Garfield doing his movie, and then the Amazing Spider-Man 2, which did not go well. So basically, after that, because it was a Marvel character, generally speaking, Kevin Feige went to go see it, and basically went to Sony and said, "Hey, tell you what, why don't you pay us a bucket of money to help you make a better Spider-Man movie, and we will make you buckets of money in return if you do these things," and then hands him notes on ways to improve the way they told the story of Spider-Man. And then you get Tom Holland, and there's like, in return, we'd like to use Spider-Man in the Avengers movies or in the MCU. And in return, you get buckets of money because we're using your licensed character. We get buckets of money because we're Marvel. Everybody's happy. And lo and behold, you wind up with the very tenuous partnership that Sony and Marvel had, making the three Spider-Man movies and his appearances in the MCU.
Hmm.
So the question has been going forward since No Way Home was Holland's last movie as Peter Parker, theoretically. Is it going to, will he continue to be Spider-Man, especially if he's taking a year off and has time to do other things? Will Sony agree to let Marvel have some control of story and editing because they know the character better? But Sony's also trying to spin off their own Spider-Verse. So basically, all of the Spider-Man and Spider-Man related characters are technically Sony um, properties as far as movies, TV, etc. Except for Silk, who I think somehow is going to wind up at Amazon
Nah.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Well,
or
that makes
Apple.
me want to ask you guys who your favorite live action Peter Parker is.
Peter Parker, not Spider-Man. Is
Yeah.
that what you're asking?
Peter Parker.
I mean, I feel like for me it's pretty easy. I think Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker was my favorite of the three. I feel like he was kind of this breath of fresh air. Not to say anything bad about Toby, because I still love those movies. They're still
All three
near.
of them.
No, that's a different topic. That Spider-Man 3 didn't exist.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
But no, like
Just
like
like
the
Indiana
first one.
Jones 4.
Oh gosh,
Or Superman
like
3 or 4.
because like the first one was, I mean, it's great. Even the second one is really great. But no, anyways, I liked Andrew Garfield because all of a sudden we got this little bit more like sassy Peter Parker kind of, like he was more into like the humor and the quips, and all that kind of fun stuff. And so I just found that I enjoyed him a lot more in those movies. Not to say again, I love each one individually because they're different.
Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland, and only likes Andrew Garfield and thinks everyone else should suck it. Direct quote: Marley
Actually, if we're gonna count the PS4 Spider-Man Peter Parker, he is actually my absolute
not live action.
favorite.
Robert, what's your answer?
Wow, I gotta follow that. Holy cow!
Yeah, try.
I liked Tobey Maguire for the two Spider-Man movies that they did with him. I mean, I enjoyed his take on Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I could honestly say I've only seen the first Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie, and I liked his Spider-Man. I think that I kept comparing him to Tobey Maguire though, because I'd gotten used to Maguire at that point.
Yeah.
I was waved off of seeing Amazing Spider-Man 2, so I never did.
Oh, you need to see it.
You should watch it.
You need to. It's not as bad as everyone says. It's not like Spider-Man 3.
Yeah. Can I hold you to that? Okay.
It's not like Spider-Man 3.
Okay.
It's not perfect either, but it is worth seeing, especially to kind of, put together all of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movies. It makes it complete.
Okay, and I mean, I did like Tom Holland though. I like the way that they introduced him. I like the fact that we did not get the quintessential origin story with him. That he's all of a sudden he's Spider-Man, and he shows up, and Tony Stark's like, "So I'm going to train this kid." I think that his take on Peter and Spider-Man was good in that he was quippy behind the mask. And especially in his big debut when he's fighting a guy from Brooklyn, or some guy named Steve from Brooklyn, that's it, and his friends, and he's not cowed by that, and he's throwing one-liners. Yeah, and he's throwing one-liners, and hey, you remember that old movie Empire Strikes Back? And things like that as he's going through and talking to Cap, going, that thing doesn't obey the laws of physics, does it? Talking about the shield, which has its own issues. So I would probably have to go Tom Holland.
Thomas Holland.
About you, Steph?
Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man, Zendaya, Mary Jane.
Wait, which Peter Parker?
Oh, I mean, Garfield, Peter Parker.
Okay, I'm like, because you were asking that specific question.
I'm sorry. Okay, Andrew Garfield, Peter Parker.
Okay, and which Spider-Man?
Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man.
Because my answer is different if that's the question. My
Spider-Man.
Tom Holland.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's good.
So it's different. It's like, I think I liked the scenes definitely more with him, like as Spider-Man, like what you were describing with him in like the Civil War scenes and stuff. Like I loved that. He was so fun. And even in Infinity War.
And the fact that Tom Holland is a gymnast, a bit of a gymnast as well, so he could do some of the flips and stunts that they were asking him to do.
That's true.
Without having to, cut, bring somebody else in, or CGI it and move on.
But I would rather watch Into the Spider-Verse or Into the Spider-Verse 2
Across the Spider-Verse.
Any of those movies, to be honest.
I was actually talking to a friend earlier today about, like, I mentioned, hey, well, yeah, I'm recording a podcast and we're doing it about Across the Spider-Verse. And they're like, what? And I'm like, Spider-Verse? You don't know about this movie? For one thing, I thought that was kind of odd. But then also when they were like, yeah, I'm not really into like a lot of like superhero movies, and I'm like, okay, that's a separate issue that we'll get into later. But I'm kidding. But
I don't like current pop culture.
but I did say though that I'm like, okay, well, it is different. It is its kind of own thing, separate from the MCU. And so like if you wanted to watch like a really fun Spider-Man movie with like really good animation and fun characters, I highly recommend watching Into the Spider-Verse and then watching the second one, Across the Spider-Verse. Because then I mean, especially if you're not wanting to have the deep dive into the MCU with all of the things. So yeah, I feel like standalone, these are both solid films that anyone can enjoy.
The barrier to entry is very low for both of these movies.
Yeah. Well, and like I even remember when Into the Spider-Verse came out, I had some like coworkers and friends that like almost like threw a fit because they're like, another Spider-Man movie. And I'm like, yes, another Spider-Man movie. It's fantastic. And this one is different. And let me tell you why.
Good for you.
So, it's just like, that's the thing is like, I think people get so turned off by like, oh, another Spider-Man, another one. And it's like, yes, but
As much as I do feel superhero fatigue, I feel like we've gone through that with so many different genres of movies. In the early 90s and 2000s, it was rom-com fatigue. Everything was a rom-com and had Drew Barrymore and whatnot in it. They're great, but there's a lot of them. War movies. I feel like war movies have had their heyday where there's a lot all at once. I might be offending all sorts of people, but it's cyclical, you guys.
It is.
We might get reprieve a little bit, but
Next, you're going to tell me like movies where giant asteroids hurtling to Earth has had its cycle of movies.
yeah, that would be strange.
God, forbid they even put out two movies at the same time that do the same movie.
Yeah, looking at you, Illusionist and Prestige.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Wow, nice
Two
genre
magician
jump.
movies.
Nice. Well, and actually, it's very good that you brought those up because today is also Magic Day. So
Oh,
yes, well
It's
played.
also Loving Day.
It is Loving Day.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Well, it's
It's not what
Loving
you
Day,
think.
but it's also when they legalize interracial marriage. That's the
Ah!
last name of the couple.
Oh, I thought it was like a loving day. Like this is the day
it is,
of loving.
but also further than that as
Yeah,
well.
It's a name as well. I got you guys.
The name of the couple who was married in Virginia in 1962, was it? That
I
had to
think
fight the
so.
battle, or 67, to fight against the state of Virginia to make their marriage legal, or to maintain its legality.
And they win.
Gotcha.
They won. Yay.
Yay, loving day.
Wow.
I got
did
the
not
duality there.
end the way that I thought it would. But
hey, this movie didn't either. We did not know it was going to end this
Look at
way.
this. Everything is just full of surprises. There you go.
Across the Spider-Verse. Oh man.
Go see it. Tell
Take
us what
your-
you think.
Take your friends, take your family, go see it, enjoy it, and please comment on it. Join us on our Discord. And we don't have the little banner down there, so I can't go. It's discord.ageofgeek.com.
Yeah, you got it right. And tell us what your favorite Spider-Man reference or Spider-Woman reference was in this movie. Did you see your favorite, variation? Did you not? So just come talk to us. We, as you can tell, we love Spider-Man. We love it all. So there is definitely plenty to talk about. So come say hey in our Discord.
Cool.
Thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much, and we will see you next time.
Hold on. My mouse.